So in the last part, we kind of did some foundational work to get our app up and running. We have some styles set in place. We're using BOMA, we're using Devise to get our user accounts going, as well as a scaffold for the shots for our Dribbble clone to upload and add new records as we please. The thing that I want to do next is tie our shots to a user. So to do that, we actually need to reference it with a special user ID on the shot model itself. Currently, if you add a new shot, it won't be tied to anyone. It'll just be creating a new shot. So right now, if you look in our DB schema, we do have, this is the old project, excuse me. So if you look in the DB folder on schema, you will see the shots record, or table, I should say. We added the user ID to begin with, so that's actually already set up, so to speak. Before, when I did this on the demo application, I did this as a migration. So we're already creating shots with the user ID in place, but we don't, I believe, have the references. So we need to go into the app models and make sure we do. So we do actually. So it belongs to user, has many shots, and if a user is deleted, the shots that correspond with that user get deleted as well. So we can go ahead and actually create a shot at this point that ties to a user. So that's a big step one. So why don't we instead get the process of adding a new shot kind of in order. And for this, I'll actually reference some of the old code from the demo app to kind of get our creation process like underway. So let's first go to, I think we'll do the new template, and I'm going to reference my old copy, shots new. And this will essentially just be some basic text plus the form partial. So I can walk you through it here. So we've got our section, our container, and that as a class, just saying, hey, what are you working on? And then we can render our form, which feeds through a variable, which is the shot. So cool. We have our form partial here. We'll come to that in a second. I'm just going to update some of these templates to match. So here's our edit. Very similar to new. We're using the same form partial, so that's nice. And then the form partial is kind of going to be pretty large and in charge. This has the shot, some custom HTML. Let me go ahead and copy and paste, and then I'll explain it a little bit better. So a big part of this app I wanted to do is capture the drag and drop functionality that Dribbble uses. I really like it in terms of uploading a shot. You don't have to worry about finding a button to click to upload a new file. To do that, there's some built-in stuff with most modern browsers that use quite a bit of JavaScript to find certain things on a page and render them in real time, like asynchronously. So there will be some JavaScript we kind of reference in this video. I won't really walk you through step by step. Well, I'll walk you through it, but I won't kind of divulge in the JavaScript realm. It's not so much my forte, but it's also just not the focus as well. So there's some fields here that I have that I don't currently have on our model. So the user shot is one of those. Going to, at least for now, comment that out just so we don't get any errors. But then we can have our user shot. It's in a column. It's like basically half the width of a typical container, and then below that's the title field and the description, and then our button to actually upload it or edit it. So let's see if this works out of the box right now. If we go to new, it looks like we're getting something. Oh, okay, so I need to actually comment this out as well for temporary. This will be kind of not quite 100% what we're wanting, but it'll still show. So it's kind of the template we're after, but the image won't actually render at this point. We don't have anything hooked up, so we also need to install Carrier Wave and get that taken care of. So let's first get these templates in order. So that one's, if this one's working, the other one should. And first, let's go ahead and I guess get that carrier wave gem setup. We've already installed it in the previous video. Here it is. Make sure you install, if you're following along, make sure you install the mini magic one to go along with it. We make use of that to resize the shot as it's uploaded, no matter what size you basically upload. So let's first go to, we can go to carrierways page, I guess, walk you through that. So we did the install. You can use this version. And then we need to generate an uploader, which you can call whatever you want your model to be. In my case, it will be a shot. So I'm going to do that on the command line. Go to a new window here. Rails, generate uploader, and then shot. Great. So that creates a new file in our app uploaders directory, which if you go to app uploaders, there should be some stuff in here that carrier wave inputs. You see we're extending it here. We did install that mini magic gem, so I'm going to uncomment this line for sure. And there's a few parameters we're going to add to this file just to make our process of uploading images easier. Oh, you know what? I called that shot, and that's going to interfere with what we want to call it. So you know what? All we have to do is delete that file and start over. Let's delete that, and then I'm going to do a new one. So Rails, generate uploader, and I'm going to call it user shot. So user shot, just like that. Didn't want to deal with naming conflicts there, so that's kind of the reason. So again, uncomment that line. You can use different storage adapters. We're going to just use basic files for now, but if you use something like Amazon or Dropbox, or what's one called Backblaze is kind of a newer one that's out that I like. That's options there. Definitely look to the documentation to get the whole thing going on there. So the main thing I want to do is uncomment this line, or these lines, and this one here. Simply just keeping this one as is, so you can whitelist certain file types, and so only these will be able to be uploaded. And then Dribble's pretty famous for their sizes, so I'm going to kind of copy them as well on those. So this one will be a full thumb to process resize to fit. So this is where that image magic gem comes into play. You need it to do these things. And there's other ones you can use. If you want to use our magic, you can. Up to you. I think that's it for this part. So we've got the uploader file set. What's next? Okay, so now we need to add our string to our model, and we'll do that by calling it user shot in our case. So let's do a migration. Rails generate migration, add, and on migrations you can do camel case or underscore. I kind of just vary what I do. I don't know why. Under user shot, 2 shots. That's what we want. And I'll just leave that, let it do its thing, and then I'll actually type this one in. So go to DB, migrate, the most latest one's at the bottom. And on here, we're going to add a column to shots. This is our main model we're working with, which is a user shot. And it could be string. Okay, so now we'll need to run a migration. And it should add that to our database. Oops, there's an error. Hang on. I called it shot. It should be shots. Let's try that again. Perfect. Okay, so with that in place, we can continue. Let's see what else they say to do. In our model, which is a shot in this case, I'm going to copy and paste this. So go to models and shot. Paste this in, but it's going to be user shot and user shot uploader, user shot. So Rails is smart to know that the way you type that goes and looks for the uploaders file right here and does its magic. So that's nice. Great. So if we reference the documentation once more, we can do a few things with this. I think we're set up to go though. Now we can add those fields back that we commented out. If we go back to shots and in the form, uncomment these. Looks like user shot uploader. Maybe I will try restarting my server once. No, not that one. All right, cool. So it was just a server thing. When in doubt, always restart it. Cool. We've got a way to do, uploads now. Right now, you couldn't do this because it requires some JavaScript to work. But if you're following along, we'll add that next. But essentially, that field's there. You just can't see it. If I were to remove this class, you'll be able to see it. Bulma helps us there. But essentially, this is what's behind the scenes doing everything. And we're using JavaScript to grab the image that we drag and drop, and then it appends it to that file type input. So that's kind of just a generalized what's going on. To get that to work, we definitely need to add some JavaScript. So let's get the entire shot functionality out of the way, and then we'll add comments and stuff later. Assets, application, we have some built-in stuff. CoffeeScript I don't write. Shots I don't write. Actually, I wanted that one back. So let me just add one called shots.js. Okay, and then this will be kind of a big file. To get going, we need to kind of override the way Turbolinks is used. JavaScript, you need to kind of ask the document for some help. So we're adding an event listener and Turbolinks on load, load, and then we'll just do a callback function, and this will be anything in here is what we're going to call. And Turbolinks, if you've never heard of it or used it, it's essentially a cool library that injects like the next page you visit, among other things, into your cache or whatever. So it appears like there's virtually no loading time. It's just kind of a nice to have, but some people love it and others hate it. So I'm creating a shots namespace, which is essentially a big object here, and I'm going to create a method on it called PreviewShot. And this one's going to be a doozy pretty much, and I've stole some of this stuff from some blog articles that kind of just made more sense to me than me trying to figure this out on my own. So bear with me, but here we go. We're going to check first if there is a file on the page, as well as window file list and window file reader. Modern browsers have this awesome API called file reader. If I could spell it, it's reader, and it essentially allows you to append things for specific files in the terms of an input that is a file type. We're gonna do a let. First, we're gonna actually create a new function called handle file select. We're gonna pass an event in, And that event's going to be first stop the propagation. And this is all so we can basically do this in drag and drop fashion. So we need to do these things to almost hack the browser. And then prevent default. And then in this function, we're going to do a bunch more. We're going to get the files. Or if there's a data transfer going on. So these files, what it's doing is kind of doing some local storage stuff for us, so it can render stuff immediately. So when I drag and drop a shot on the file space, in this case, it creates a local storage. It turns it into like base 64 image, and then it allows it to display on the page immediately rather than having to like literally upload the file to get it to display. So it's kind of just doing some cool behind the scenes work that allows us to do things asynchronously, which is all the hype. So it's kind of confusing. It definitely threw me for a loop, but I can see the potential here. When you're doing dragging and dropping, you kind of need something a little more on the edge case. So app++. We're going to loop through our files, and then for each file we're going to first check if the type matches an image. Dot whatever, and then you can just throw continue there and it'll keep going with the program, which is cool. So then we need to create our reader, which is again a built-in API. We'll just create that new object, and then we'll take the reader. This is all within the loop, mind you, so make sure you realize that. AllNode equals anonymous function, pass in the file. Then return function. Oops. So this is where it'll render that thumbnail. And I'm copying this comment, so it's closure to capture the file information. And then we're only processing and then this will be files is a file list of file objects. So we want to list properties here. Okay, so next, when rendering the thumbnail, we need to we're kind of creating some HTML here. Document dot create element span. So that's good. Then we're going to take a span, get the inner HTML, and inject it with this, which is an array, which contains an image class thumb. Oops. Image class, double quotes there, and then thumb. Then we want to actually pass a source as well with double quotes. Then there's a single quote, so we want to open, keep that single, and then comma separate e target result, comma separate that, close that single parenthesis, and then our quote, and then this double quote, and then we want to do title, and I'm missing another quote. I'll get it at the end. Another opening, comma, escape. It's a built-in method in the file. Dot name, comma, close that, and then we'll have the end of the image, and then we'll close it. So it looks ridiculous, I know, and sounds ridiculous me typing it and saying it, but it's working. So we're going to join that array. I'm going to turn on word wrap here. Okay. And then finally, we'll get the list element that's on the page already. And I showed you that before in the show page. And then we're going to insert before, another built-in, span, and null. We need a semicolon there, and then at the very end, we're going to pass an F there. And then when that is ended, we're going to pass reader dot read as data URL F. So this is what happens when it turns into basically base64 and makes all that happen. Gives us a URL back. So function, this is going to be the start of the drag and drop stuff. So handle drag over, if I can spell. So pass in the event again, and we'll do the same kind of stop propagation, prevent default, and then data transfer dot drop effect equals copy. Cool. And then we will continue down. I'm going to set up some basically drag and drop event listeners next. And this is just going to be so when we drag the image onto the page, the styles will update and things will hide and show where needed. So we're also establishing what is the drop zone here. Let's get started there. Drop zone document dot get element by ID. And drop zone, I could show you real quick. We already have this content in our view, I believe. We don't yet. So let me port that over from the first the demo app I showed you guys. Let's see. It's not in the show view. It'd be in the form view. I'm sorry. So we did do this. Essentially, this is that drop zone we're dragging to. It's got the styles right there. So when we drag it, we want it to, you know, kind of light up or do things based on our interaction. And then when it gets output, it'll be in this list. So that's kind of what's going on there. And then if it's rendered, it'll render just above here. So let's go back and finish this up. So const target equals document dot document element const file input is that input I showed you before that's actually hidden from view at this point. Shot user shot, and this is a ID generated by Rails. If we go into the source, I'll just do view-page source, we see that file input here, and it gives it that ID based on basically what you call it. So that gets generated automatically. So if you're wondering where I got that, that is where. And we'll do the same for the preview image. Equals document, get element by ID. So I tasked myself in the beginning to not using jQuery, doing all of this, and I got pretty far, but at the very end it was getting pretty darn hard to not, so I caved and did. So this portion though there's no jQuery here, so that's pretty cool. And then new shot. So this, we're grabbing the new shot ID on the new shot path. So when you create a new shot, this actually has that ID on the entire form. Again, I'll do view source, maybe increase the size here. Form itself has the new shot class actually, but I added an ID to it. With those ready, we can go and run all of these things. So if first check there is a drop zone. Actually, I spelled that wrong. There we go. Then we will add these event listeners. And to specifically drag over, we'll pass in that handle drag over function and false at the end. I spelled this wrong, I see it. Event. And this one will be a drop effect. And it will be our handle file select function at the very top, the kind of confusing one. Right here, this big guy. And that handles the file transfer and all of that jazz. The next ones are going to be more or less styles that update when that stuff happens. These I added myself. They could be probably cleaned up a lot, but I honestly ran out of time. So let's just add them willy-nilly here. Listener. I can't spell, guys. Listen. And this one will be drop again. Or actually drag over. And for these, I'm just going to open up a basic function with the arrow function, I should say. And we'll grab the drop zone again and its class list and add fire. And I've added that to our style sheet, so I'll add that stuff back in a second. So we'll do it again, add event listener. And we want to do a drag leave. Same kind of process. Arrow function. This one will do drop zone dot class list dot remove fire. And I forgot to add false, comma false to this. So make sure you do that. And there's quite a few more, so sorry. Drop zone dot add event listener. This one's the big one, drop. Same thing, we aren't necessarily passing through the event, but it's there if we want it. Cool. This one we are actually using the event, so prevent default, and then drop zone dot classless dot remove fire again. And these aren't consecutive. It's all based on the interaction you put in play, so it's not like it's chaining like jQuery or anything. So this one we're going to add the file. So when we drop it, I want the file form that's, in this case, the user shot field to update its basically its path to the file we're dragging. And now you can do that. You never used to be able to for the sake of security, but it's all pretty streamlined now, which is cool. And then I wrote this comment ID, edit, hide, preview, image on drops. So then we'll do a check for the preview image first. And then preview image dot style dot display equals none. And then if it's a new shot form, oops. We'll do drop zone equals none. So what's going on here is if the image is updating on edit, or if I'm editing a shot, so to speak, I drag and drop a new one there, I want the preview image that's already displaying to hide itself so the new one gets put in place. So it's kind of shadowing the old image until you actually update the form in front of you. And then on the new, when you create a new shot, when you drop a new image on, I want the drop zone to go away because I don't want people to think you can add multiple shots at once. Although that could be a cool feature at some point, but we're not going to go that far. All right, so we have one more. Two more, I'm sorry. Drag over, comma, pass in the event, comma, semicolon, prevent default, this is for the body element specifically, and the drop zone dot class list add dragging. So as soon as the image hits, you're dragging it in from the side over your browser, as soon as it hits that, this class dragging gets added to the body, or in this case it's the drop zone, but it could be the body if you want it to be anywhere really. Okay, so then we want to do a remove to body when not dragging. Target again, add event listener. We'll do drag leave. Another arrow function, and remember to pass false. Drop zone again, dot class list, dot remove dragging. And then we want to do that again with fire. All right. So when you're working with namespacing, none of this stuff's actually firing at this point because we need to actually initialize the function. To do that, we'll come all the way down, and I'll actually put a semicolon there, and we can call shots.previewImage, and that will initialize it. So if all goes well, all that code lets us do what we're after. So let's first double check not getting any crazy errors, except type errors, event listener. It'll tell me what line it's on, I hope. Yeah, the very first. Any more? Cool. Oh, plenty more. Shots preview image is not a function because it's called PreviewShot. Duh. Cool. Okay. So let's see. Let's test our theory here and see if we can actually create a shot. I've got those shots you probably saw at the beginning saved here. I'm just going to use them verbatim. So see, as I drag into the body, that's the dragging class. And then into the actual drop zone, it's the fire class. So fire is green, dragging is red. And if you drop, looks like something's off on that line. Render on load. So let's double check that. That's why. Put a capital F in here and it should be lowercase. I hope that's it. Let's try that once more. Nope. Render is still not defined. Oh, it's because it's reader, guys. Why didn't you tell me? Been looking at this too long. Did we get it? We got it. Yeah. So that's what we're after. So obviously you could work and do this even more of a cool way, because if I refresh this page, it's gone. Which is, I mean, I don't know that you'd refresh your page when you're doing this, but maybe something happens and you need to. But it's not a huge issue because you're already searching for a file to upload to, so I figured it was okay. So that functionality exists now, so we can just do like a Netflix UI concept. I've got a little Ipsum generator here. Create a shot. Looks like there's an error. Okay, so I think next we need to focus on our shots show page, and I think that's what was wrong here, is we don't have all of our fields, so it gave us an error when I did submit it, because it should redirect to the shot show. So we'll do that in the very next episode.